We're starting in 3, 2, 1. Wait, hold on. Episode 7.
What?
I was trying to remember what episode we were on, so in the introduction I could say it. All right.
Gotcha.
Starting in 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to episode 7 of 32andGoal. I am your host, Corey, and today we got Ryan. We're going to be going over Week 11. So far, Week 11, we watched the Seahawks-Packers game. The Seahawks ended up winning in a good game, I thought. I thought it was a lot better than it was going to be. Myself, Rob, and Ryan correctly predicted the Seahawks winning, while Tyler wanted the Packers to win. I think it was a little biased, but what do you think of the game? Anything in particular?
No, I mean, their coach is terrible, the Packers coach, like we talked about a lot last week. We don't have to rehash all that, but now there's a huge campaign to Packers fans who want him to get fired. They're already talking about coaching candidates, and we still have like a quarter of the season left.
Yeah, I think I think they were in kind of the same boat as the Lions were going into the trade deadline, where they got rid of Clinton Dix, they got rid of the dude who fumbled the ball. I forgot his name, and
Montgomery.
Yeah, Ty Montgomery, whatever. And you look at these players, and they kind of in the same boat as the Lions, where you kind of get rid of Clinton Dix, and you kind of say your season's over at that point. You get rid of the last best secondary you have. Teams are going to start throwing all over you. And I agree with you on McCarthy, man. And there was a lot of third and shorts where they threw it, and Rodgers ended up on his back almost every other third down, which is hilarious if you're not a Packers fan. But as a Packers fan, you got to kind of start questioning whether you have the right coach or not going forward. Especially since
they're bad this year.
Yeah, especially since you're paying Aaron Rodgers all that money for him to be on his back half the game. So it is what it is, I guess. But going forward,
they're not giving it. They don't have anybody for him to throw to. If they didn't have Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers would probably look way worse.
Well, they have Devontae Adams and they have Jimmy Graham, and they seem to be underutilizing Jimmy Graham a lot. And I know the Packers don't necessarily. Yeah.
Jimmy Graham broke his thumb, so he's going to be out.
Yeah. So now all they have is Devontae Adams and Cobb, but he's in and out of the season. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got a bunch of rookies, struggling to get open in scramble situations. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough on the team.
Yeah.
So we got Titans Colts. So.
Titans Colts. I'm gonna pick. Oh, this is tough. This game is real tight.
It is a weird one.
I will probably. I'm gonna go with the Colts.
Okay.
It is a tough choice. It's kind of a toss-up. The Colts starting safety was just announced out for the game, but I think they just have. I just think that they have more offense than the Titans, and the Titans offense can't take advantage of the Colts' lack on defense. But I think it's going to be a really close game.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good one as well. Last week we were giving praise to Andrew Luck, saying he can spread the ball around, and he made no exception, that week either. Eric Ebron had 2 touchdowns. Mo Alley Cox had a touchdown. I don't know who that is. And, now he has a touchdown on the season. And, now that's 3 touchdowns in one game, against the Jaguars, who have a decent defense. It's been kind of falling apart these last couple of weeks. But that's still 3 passing touchdowns to, 2 decent receivers or 1 decent receiver and then some guy who's no one's ever even heard of. And, that's just Andrew Luck's ability to spread that ball around.
They finally fixed their offensive line so he has time to throw. It's, a credit to them. Also discredit to them because it took them so long to do it, but they finally have a decent offensive line. So this is what Andrew Luck could have been doing the entire time. That's why he's playing the best of his career right now.
Right. He's definitely I'll be surprised if he doesn't get comeback player of the year at this point.
There's no one else in his stratosphere for that.
But yeah, I looked it up. Mo Alley Cox has 2 touchdowns. So it's not even his first touchdown yesterday or last week. Like, I don't know if you've heard of him, but I have not heard of him. So it's just crazy that Andrew Luck has that ability. But on the other side of the ball, you got the Mariota, and I don't really have much to say about him.
He's up and down with his play. I mean, he's really safe with the ball. He's given Corey Davis some pretty good games, or maybe vice versa. Corey Davis is a really talented receiver. He should be breaking out more so than he is, but maybe that's due to Mariota. They finally stopped using Derrick Henry at running back as much. He's just not that good. I mean, I think he was just overrated. And they started using Deion Lewis, who they signed over the offseason more, and it's working out way better for them.
Yeah. I noticed Deion Lewis is up to 396 yards now. He's averaging 3.5. Derrick Henry's averaging 3.5. They have a decent running game. And Marcus Mariota doesn't necessarily have the most accurate ball in football. He's 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this late in the season. That's not good. And especially having someone like Corey Lewis, or Corey Davis and Deion Lewis, you should be able to have a little bit more yards than 1,400 this part of the season. So, their
offense struggled all year.
Yeah, their offense currently is ranked 30th out of 32 in total yards. So take that as you will. They're only averaging 18.7 points per game, which is 28th. Like, they're not doing that well.
Strange. They're not really high on time of possession lists, like the teams that possess the ball the most per game. But when you watch them, it feels like they should be number one. It feels like they have at least 2 and 10-minute drives a game, where the other team is just waiting on the sideline, with whatever good player they have, whether it be their quarterback, or you look at Zeke when they played the Cowboys recently, where it's just like the Cowboys don't even have a chance. They have to score on their drives or else they won't get the ball back.
Right.
And the Titans play that keep away game really well. So it'll be interesting to see if they can do that to Andrew Luck, who actually can score on every drive, because he's just been doing that all year.
Right, exactly. Because they're playing that keep away game really well, but they're not playing that scoring game really well. And
exactly, if they could score on top of it, they'd be doing a lot better than 5-4.
Right. Which is still a decent, record, but
that's a great place to be at this point in the season.
Right. Okay, so next we got Buccaneers. You picked going back to the Titans Colts. You picked the Colts.
Correct.
Okay, I also have the Colts winning that game. Buccaneers Giants. I think I was the only one that picked the Giants to win last week. Primetime football, if I'm not mistaken.
I wouldn't doubt it.
But going forward, I don't think they're going to be able to do that again. Not against this Buccaneers team. I think the Buccaneers are going to continue going with Fitzpatrick, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's like rumors out there that they'll no matter what happens, they're going to start him anyway, because if they put Jameis Winston back in and he gets injured, his entire contract next year is guaranteed. If they just leave him out, that's not the case. They could cut him next year if they need to.
Contracts are weird, man. I still struggle to understand them half the time.
Yeah, there's always these weird clauses that come up. So I think that they're going to stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick because of that.
Yeah, and Fitzpatrick is doing a ton better. His accuracy is better. He has more touchdowns. He has more yards.
Yeah. I mean, Jameis looks like sometimes just like an idiot out there. Like the commentators say it all the time. I don't know what he was seeing or thinking when he did that. But the play calling, you can blame. Apparently, the coach is blaming the play calling too, because he said that he's been calling the plays lately on offense, and he's going to just back off of that completely and put it all on their offensive coordinator to do.
That's crazy. So yeah, I don't know. I think the Buccaneers are a lot better with Fitzpatrick. They're still 3-6. It's gonna be hard for them to even get a wild card spot at this point. I don't even know if
Yeah.
they're technically in the race, but they're not out yet. They could easily win this game though, and I'm going to predict that the Buccaneers are going to win this game.
I'm going to take the Giants in this game. Surprisingly, I hate the Giants. I mean, there's, as far as picking them to win anything, they haven't won at home this year, which is crazy. But I'm still going to pick them anyway. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game because neither defense is good, and I just think the Giants. I think the Giants can just pull it out.
Yeah, the thing with the Giants, they do have really good weapons, and not only Odell Beckham Jr. and Saquon Barkley, but Sterling Shepard is like the guy on the team who's basically like he's always there when you need him. He's always making touchdowns. He's always like getting these great passes. He's
Sure. They have incredible receivers because of him.
yeah, exactly. And then Evan Ingram as well, and
Exactly.
Tampa Bay doesn't necessarily have a good defense. On average, teams are scoring 32 points against them a game, 32.3, which is one of the worst, if not the worst. Yeah, it's the worst. Currently, going into week 11, they're currently sitting at 32.3 points allowed. That's insane. And so with the weapons on the Giants, they can, beat them. But I think, offensively, the Buccaneers they have a little bit of an edge there. I don't know how, looking at stats and papers and talent, you would think this Giants team would be pretty good, but I don't know. They're just not clicking or something. We talked about their locker room struggles last week, and I don't know. I saw a little bit more camaraderie between Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr. after a couple touchdown passes last week, where they came and like congratulated each other. So maybe they're starting to get like
that's all it takes
on each other. But when two players hate each other, go on.
Their offense just boils down to their offensive line is really bad.
Yeah,
they have to dump the ball off to Saquon Barkley constantly because of it. If they had a better quarterback, maybe he could spread the ball around a lot even in that situation. But since they don't, that's what's happening. And yeah, it's the same thing we saw with Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger earlier this year. The connection just wasn't there at the time, so there's all this friction that's made more of a thing by the media than I think the players themselves. But if you go to a guy and say, "Hey, are you frustrated you're not catching touchdowns?" I'm sure they're all going to say yes when they aren't.
Right. And going back to your line thing, I just looked it up. Eli Manning has been sacked 32 times this season. 32. That's a lot.
Yeah, and on the other side, Andrew Luck hasn't been sacked in a month.
Right? And they're not playing, but
it makes it easier.
It's
right. It's just that like in past years, Eli had that benefit of he was always throwing the ball away really fast, and his offensive line was decent enough to protect him. And Andrew Luck was constantly being murdered. And you see the difference in their play right now. I mean, Andrew Luck's significantly younger in his prime, but the offensive line just has to give you a chance.
Exactly. I mean, even the worst player, even the worst quarterback in the NFL is still a professional quarterback. Just give him a little bit of time. You're right. Exactly. And you look at some of the best teams in the NFL right now, and almost all of them have a really good offensive line. And so
it's true.
Game 3, I guess, is the Steelers-Jags. Steelers versus Jags. This is interesting. I think Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm going to start with talking about Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he's really, really starting to become an elite receiver. He already has 762 yards, 3 touchdowns. He doesn't have the touchdowns Antonio Brown does yet. He has 10. But I think, without Antonio Brown, this team still does really well. Obviously, you play a little bit different coverage. You hit Juju Smith a little bit harder. But, I think he's starting to come into his own. And, going forward, I think we're going to start talking in the next year or two whether Juju Smith-Schuster is, up there comparable with Julio Jones and whatnot. Which is...
Juju Smith-Schuster came into this season with 3 straight over 100-yard games, 119, 121, 116. He immediately broke out. Last year, he was incredible. As Lions fans, we saw it firsthand. He destroyed us in the Steelers-Lions game for his giant breakout game.
Exactly.
But he's been given more targets this year. Last year, he was, I think it was 55th in the amount of targets for receivers overall in the NFL. But the rest of his stats were up there with the best wide receivers, meaning that he was doing insane things with the few amount of targets he got. So they increased that. They made sure to put him into this offense way more this year. And I think you're right. As years go on, I mean, Antonio Brown will slow down. Comparing the touchdowns for one of the best wide receivers of all time versus his running mate on his same team is kind of rough. So I understand why Juju Smith-Schuster only has a few touchdowns, but when they're in the red zone, they do look for him. I know before last week, the red zone touches and targets for players, it was Alvin Kamara and then Juju Smith-Schuster. So they are looking for him down there. It's just that Antonio Brown makes a breakaway play seemingly every game for a touchdown.
Exactly. He did last week as well, Antonio Brown. And, switching over to their running game, though, James Conner, I think, is holding his own. A lot of people were like, Le'Veon Bell's not in it. They're not going to have a good season. We officially heard that Le'Veon Bell's out for the rest of the season. And James Conner is, sitting here with 10 touchdowns already and 771 yards. So he's doing really well. It's kind of hard to fill those Le'Veon Bell shoes, but I think he's doing it almost flawlessly in, someone who was able to step up and take on that run game in a way, Le'Veon Bell was. I think it kind of, discredits Le'Veon Bell in a way, not completely, but in a way, you see a running back who a lot of people thought was going to have a bad season, who a lot of people thought was going to, slow down the Steelers' offense, and has 771 yards. So, do they have?
I would disagree.
Okay.
I would disagree that it downgrades Le'Veon Bell at all. The Steelers' offensive line is the best in football. They've shown that now. I think James Conner is a different runner. I think what Le'Veon Bell adds is that I think that's why we're seeing Juju Smith-Schuster get so many targets, become such a possession guy, is because Le'Veon Bell did both. He would be James Conner plus Juju Smith-Schuster in their offense. Well, James Conner, some of the offensive linemen have talked about it. They almost prefer to play with a running back of his style because while Le'Veon Bell was patient and could make more out of a play than was there, a guy like James Conner sees the hole and immediately hits it. He makes the right decisions. Also, the team pumped him up real hard. Teams are going to do this with the players they pick, but they mostly were saying that if he didn't have the cancer before the draft and were concerns about that, his health and everything, that he would have been a first-round talent. And they thought they got extremely lucky with him, and he's shown that he can definitely be their running back of the future.
Yeah, he definitely has that quick burst speed, like you said, which, exploits these holes, and he's able to get through them. So, kudos to James Conner for, having a great season. On the other side, Jacksonville Jags, we just talked about it a couple minutes ago. They don't have the camaraderie right now. Their locker room's falling apart. I think it was mostly after they got beat by the Texans a couple weeks back. And, even their own players are saying their defense was highly overrated. Earlier in the season, we were saying they were one of the best defenses, and we thought they could stop the Chiefs. And then they just got rolled over by the Chiefs. And so you look at this team, they have TJ Yeldon, Leonard Fournette, a couple big names, but they don't have that much, star power. Their quarterback is struggling. Their quarterback takes a lot of the blame for the losses. I don't think it's necessarily all on Blake Bortles. I think almost any quarterback in that situation is going to struggle a little bit. But, Blake Bortles isn't helping the cause at all. I don't know.
Absolutely. Their defense has regressed really hard, and their offensive line has regressed. I mean, that was what their team was built on last year. Their team wasn't Blake Bortles take us to the promised land. It was the run game and the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't really had either working this year. This game's going to be ridiculous because if last year the Jaguars were the best defense in football, and the Steelers threw up 42 on them. They lost 45-42 in the divisional playoff game, but the Steelers are better than they were last year. And yeah, I think that they might end up blowing out the Jags, even though the Jags are at home. And you could easily see the Jags turning around at any point. All the players are still there. All the talent is still there. But the Steelers are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, exactly. You talked about how they relied heavily on their rushing game, and currently rushing, they only have 851 total rushing yards. They're 26th in terms of rushing, and that's not where you want to be. You don't want to be that low. Giants are at 720, but that's pretty much one guy. You're looking at the other teams that are below them, and they don't have good running backs. Minnesota's running back was hurt for most of the season, and so yeah.
Fair, the Jags have the same situation, but still, that still explains why they're 3-6. I mean,
but yeah, it's a must-win. I think it's a must-win for the Jags.
Absolutely.
They're 3-6 right now. The Texans are slowly starting to pull away. They're coming off a bye week. The Titans are 5-4. The Colts are 4-5. With the Colts could easily win against the Titans, which we were just talking about. If the Jags lose this game to the Steelers, they fall 2 points behind third place, and that's almost hard to come back from. You're not even in the wild card contention in your own division. You're not even second or third. You're fourth. And
this is a team that was in the AFC Championship last year.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a major disappointment.
So, and the Steelers, it is, not really a must-win, but if they do win, which they can win, they go to 7-2, which at this point in the season, 7-2, with the remaining schedule, they're pretty much almost guaranteed the spot in, not guaranteed, but as close as you can get.
Yeah, they'd have to fall off pretty hard not to make it.
Exactly. And so, away, the Steelers are 3-0-1 away. They haven't even lost. They tied to the Browns week 1, but that's it. And, they're playing pretty good on the road, so.
And they can play anywhere.
Exactly. So, next we got arguably the game of the week between the Detroit Lions and the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, yeah.
Man. This is going to be brutal. But
I can't believe the Lions are only a 4.5 point underdog in this game. That doesn't make any sense. The Lions are so bad, and the Panthers have been so good. I don't get it. The line should be way bigger than that. The Lions aren't going to be able to do anything in this game. The Panthers defense is so much better than the Lions offense. They're going to be without Marvin Jones. Golden Tate got traded. The Panthers don't allow the run. There's no hope. The only thing that there's hope is that they're at home, but that doesn't even matter.
So I'm assuming you're taking the Panthers in this game, right? Because
all the way.
It's going to be pretty brutal. I'm going to take a different path. And, I'm going to say this not only as a Lions fan, but looking at this game, looking at the Panthers team and looking at the Lions team, I'm going to tell you the difference maker in this game is going to be Damon Harrison. I say this because Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey are basically the entire offense for Carolina Panthers. You can make an argument, Devin Funchess comes in, makes some good catches, but they're a rushing team through and through. Their quarterback is really good at scrambling. Christian McCaffrey is really good at running, catching those slant route passes, catching those slots. And And I think that's where the Detroit Lions offense is going to excel this week. They don't necessarily have the offense that they had with Golden Tate. We've seen that in the last 2 weeks. They're struggling. Defenses are able to sack, put more pressure on the offensive line for the Lions, which, it wouldn't be surprised if Stafford gets 6-7 more sacks. He had 16 in the last 2 weeks, 13 in the weeks before that total. So, Golden Tate kind of pulled that coverage, that defensive line coverage off, but they don't have to do that anymore. They can, double coverage Jones and Galladay. But I think the difference maker is going to be Damon Harrison. So I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think it's going to be. And this is one of those must-win games for the Lions. I think a lot of Lions fans are already counting the season done. And, if they lose, it's going to be the nail in the coffin pretty much. But, we'll see. I think they can beat them. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like you think. But we need to see a big game from, our two receivers. And, it'll help clear up their running game.
Sure. I mean, you mean Kenny Galladay and who else? TJ Jones? Because Marvin Jones, I don't think is going to play. Did they announce he's going to play?
I don't think they've announced he's not going to play. So
he didn't get to practice all week. I think Kerryon Johnson can have a good game. The Bears linebackers, Bears front seven is really good, and he played decently against them. I mean, it was a blowout, so maybe they were playing just prevent, but I just don't think the Lions, when it comes to a rushing quarterback like Cam, you need good linebacker play on top of good defensive line, and I don't think we have that either. I could see this be one of those sneaky games where it's like, how are the Lions doing this? The Panthers are playing down to their competition, on the road. I mean, at this point, I just want the Lions to lose. Also, because we're out of it, and I want a high draft pick. Apparently, this draft is full of great D-line prospects. This is like this draft is going to be known for being loaded for that, and that's exactly what we need. So I would love to have a high pick in it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird, I don't know. The whole situation of getting rid of Golden Tate makes sense, but we were only one game behind. I don't know how that's going to work. So, yeah, it can go either way. I know I'm talking biasly here by saying the Lions are going to win. I said the same thing last week when I knew they weren't, and it's going to be tough. And, I could do a whole 2-hour segment on the Lions, but we're just going to leave it at that. Cowboys. Wait, who do you got winning?
You're picking the Lions then.
Yeah. You picking the Panthers?
I picked the Panthers, and you're picking the Lions for.
Next game we got Cowboys going to Atlanta to play the Falcons, and normally I think this is an interesting game. Neither team is playing that great. We've seen explosive offenses on both sides. We've seen terrible offense on both sides. We've seen their defenses just get rocked on both sides, and we've seen their defenses hold their own on both sides. So it's going to be one of those weird games where whoever's feeling it is going to win. And I know that's kind of like a weird thing to say. You can say that about every team, but the Cowboys just got beat, right? And or did they win? Hold on. No, they
beat. I think they beat the Titans in that game.
They beat the Eagles last week.
Or at home.
So they beat the Eagles. They lost to the Titans.
Oh, they did lose to the Titans.
And so, and that's one of those things. And then you got the Falcons on the other side of the ball, who just lost to the Browns. And I don't think the Browns are a bad team, so I'm not gonna be like they lost to the terrible Browns. But then the week before that, they beat the Redskins. So, this is a weird game because neither of these are consistent teams. So I don't even know right now. Well, I know who I pick, but I don't know. It could go either way.
Who are you picking?
I'm picking the Falcons. Simply because it's at home, and I didn't have really, it's hard. Like I said, it's a weird game. The 4-5 Falcons versus, the 4-5 Cowboys. But the Cowboys are kind of struggling on the road. They're only 1-4 on the road, and the Falcons are 3-2 at home. They got a little bit of advantage, I think, because of that. And Julio.
I agree. That's my pick, and that's exactly why. I don't see any like matchup deficiencies that I think are going to sway it either way. I mean, the Cowboys, they have a bunch of injuries on defense, but I don't think it's like enough to hold them back. Their defense still plays pretty well, but yeah, like you said, they're on the road. I think it might end up being high scoring, even though the Cowboys haven't really been a high scoring team, because I think Zeke can run all over the Falcons, but I still think the Falcons will end up scoring more in the game.
Yeah, exactly. The NFC South is basically the Saints division for the rest of the season. The Cowboys are only 2 games behind the Redskins. They could still somehow make the playoffs, especially because the Eagles are struggling pretty hard. So, the Falcons, if they go to 5-5, they're in an okay spot to try to get a wild card. So it is kind of a must-win for the Falcons. But, the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, he's kind of struggling a little bit. Zeke Elliott is having a pretty decent year. He's doing really good. We saw him tear apart the Lions in a career game and then, do okay since. And, on the other side of the ball, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones connection is finally getting there. Julio Jones had a great missed tackle or avoided tackle and had a 58-yard touchdown 2 weeks ago. So he's doing really well. And Calvin Ridley is pretty much their touchdown machine on that team. So I think they have kind of an advantage because they're at home, and that's pretty much all there is. But any last words before we move on?
No, I mean the Zeke's playing incredibly. I'll say that. I mean, his offensive line, they keep getting hurt, and but they're toughing it out too. Zach Martin got hurt in their last game and still toughed it out, and Zeke had a monster game. So I mean, that's a credit to them for that. They could end up pulling the division. I mean, you said they're only 2 games behind the Redskins. Plenty of games for the records to flip and them to be on top. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Next, we got where we at? We got the Bengals going to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And, this is an AFC North game. So it's pretty important. And it's also pretty important because their records are only 1 game away from each other. I actually have the Bengals winning this game. Andy Dalton's having a pretty decent year. 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. You don't really talk about Andy Dalton, but you also don't really talk about Joe Flacco, who has, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
This game, I honestly don't know how to pick this game because Joe Flacco probably isn't going to play in it. They're going to have to start their rookie, Lamar Jackson, and we have no idea what he's going to look like. The Bengals don't have Andy Dalton. They played the Saints, so it makes sense that they struggled. But they struggled badly without AJ Green. So who's to say if it was the Saints that did that to them or if it was AJ Green being out, given that he's one of the best receivers in the league. There's reports that he was going to try to play this Sunday, even though the reports last week were that he would be out till December. So I'm highly doubting that he's going to end up playing. And it's such a sketchy game. I have no idea what's going to happen. The last time these two teams played each other, the Bengals blew out the Ravens earlier this year. But I mean, I'm going to pick the Ravens in the game, and that's just honestly because they're at home and their defense was missing pieces at that point. And I think the Bengals offense just struggled against a worse defense than the Ravens have.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be really interested to see what Lamar Jackson does at quarterback. He was I think they said from last year's quarterback class, he was the last one who wasn't starting yet, and now he is.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting game. It's also a division game, and no matter who you are in the league, division games are pretty close almost always. So yeah, I got the Bengals. You got the Ravens. It's gonna be interesting. Going to the next game, Texans versus the Redskins. What are your thoughts?
Oof. It's a tough game to pick. I'm picking the Texans, even though they're coming to the Redskins. I think the Texans are just a better team. I think both teams have pretty good defenses. The Redskins, they're the team that got Clinton Dix, and I think the more time they have to integrate him into their defense, which already had one of the best safeties in the league, and so now they have two of the best safeties in the league, and Josh Norman, who has been one of the best cornerbacks. I think that defense is just going to keep getting better all year. But the Texans have a really good defense too, and I think they have a little bit more offense, especially big play offense. And so yeah, I'm gonna go with the Texans, but this is gonna be a good game.
I got the Texans as well. Pretty much to piggyback on what you were saying. Not only did the Redskins benefit from getting Clinton Dix, but the Texans benefited from getting Demaryius Thomas from the Broncos, who seems like an excellent addition to this already kind of explosive, big play game or team. They kind of rely heavily on the big plays. Deshaun Watson's a gunslinger, 73-yard long touchdown, 17 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins is arguably a top 3 receiver right now. He made one of the most magnificent catches I've seen earlier in the season, where he pretty much caught it with his nutsack, and it got
the tank catch.
It got called back, but it was still like, how do you even make that catch?
Oh no, it was incredible. I think it didn't it not count, but he did. Yeah, he caught it under his nutsack. It was crazy.
It didn't count because there was like a holding on the other side of the field or some shit. But
yeah, stupid.
And Demaryius Thomas, he's growing in age, but he's still excellent. He's still good. He already has 61 yards on this team. So, take that as you will. 3 targets, 3 receptions, so he's sitting at 100%. And, it's going to be interesting seeing, like you said, 2 of the best corners in the game. And going against, 2 really good receivers and gunslinger Deshaun Watson. Adrian Peterson is still turning heads. I don't understand how, he's as old as he is in a running back, which typically have short lifespans, and he still has, 4 touchdowns, 672 yards. I forgot who they were playing, but, I was watching them earlier, and he was tiptoeing the sidelines and gave dude a nasty stiff arm while he was, like, off balance. And it's like, I don't understand how he's still doing that. Like, he's still so good. And
he's a physical freak. It's crazy. He's a living legend. I mean,
yeah,
he really is.
You make the cover of Madden, you're pretty good, right? So I got the Texans winning as well. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun game to watch. Texans are pretty much my AFC team. One of my good buddies from the military lives down in Houston, so we talk about it often. But going forward, this game is probably, no offense to either of the fan bases here, but probably going to be the worst game of the week. And because of that, it might be interesting. And that is the Raiders and the Cardinals. Neither of these teams are doing too well. You got the Raiders, who are 1-8, and the Cardinals, who are 2-7. Debatable as the 2 worst teams in the league right now, which is crazy because we got a debatable game that we're going to talk about in a second with 2 of the best teams. So what a weird week. But Oakland Raiders going against the Cardinals. Do you got anything? It's
I I'm going to pick Arizona. Arizona's defense is playing really well this year. For the majority of the season, but they might be starting to get it together.
Yeah, I mean,
it was Kansas City, and David Johnson had his best game of the year.
Right.
And that was after the offensive coordinator change. So I'm picking Arizona easy in this game. The Raiders are tanking at this point. They traded everyone away. Their receivers, Martavis Bryant's injured. Jordy Nelson's injured. I have no idea who's going to catch the ball there. I guess they have Seth Roberts. And then I don't know any other of their receivers' names. They trade away Amari Cooper. They have nothing. They have nothing left. I mean, they're just a shell of a team, and they're obviously tanking.
Yeah, I agree. This kind of was like a coin flip for me. I picked the Cardinals only because they're at home. I completely forgot about Jordy Nelson being injured. Who's probably one of their best receivers besides Jared Cook, and so I always every time I get the chance to say Derek Carr is overrated, I'm gonna say it. So there it is. Derek Carr is overrated. Josh Rosen, Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford got dropped. Josh Rosen, he's not doing well. He's still a rookie. He's in a difficult situation. But he's not doing well. 55.8% completion. Part of that's on you. Part of that's on, your team being average. So, he's been sacked 21 times. Their offensive line is kind of struggling as well. So, I got the Cardinals winning this one as well. But I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting game because it's going to be so it's like I compare it to a train wreck, right? You can't look away at how bad this game is going to be, but I don't know. I think it'll be fun to watch because it'll be so bad. No offense to the Raiders or the Cardinals, unless you're a Derek Carr fan. So Broncos. The next 4 games are pretty interesting. Starting off with the Broncos and the Chargers. It's in LA. Not that that's going to make much of a difference, because the Chargers don't really have home field advantage. I hope they start getting one after they see Phillip Rivers get 21 touchdowns. Arguably, if it wasn't for Mahomes, I think everyone would be talking about this team a lot more. And it's weird because they're sitting at 7-2. They're doing really well. Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, the Chargers are the NFL's best kept secret at this point.
Yeah, and you look at them and you're like, they have weapons, they have talent, they have Phillip Rivers, who's having one of the best seasons of his career. Their offensive line is keeping him on his feet. Melvin Gordon is tearing it up. Keenan Allen is tearing it up. Tyrell Williams is tearing it up. They have a bunch of receivers who all have at least one touchdown. Tyrell Williams and Mike Williams both have 5. This team is straight dominating almost every team they play. Not dominating, but
and they haven't had Joey. On defense, they haven't had Joey Bosa for weeks, and he's one of the best defensive ends in the league.
Yeah,
they're going to get him back. They're taking him slow. Who knows if they were in a tighter race for a playoff spot, they might rush him back. But now they can ease him in because he had a broken foot, and now he can come back closer to the playoffs and make their defense even better than it is right now.
Right. I mean, I'm all talking about the Chargers even more. This is an AFC West matchup. It can go either way, but I think the Chargers are in a better position right now. They go 8-2. Week 11, they're in a pretty good spot going forward. Especially the remaining of their schedule. They got Cards next week that they can beat. Steelers will be a tough one. Bengals will be a tough one. Chiefs. Oh, well, maybe they have a hard schedule. They got the Ravens later and the Broncos later. So this is one of those, with that remaining schedule, Steelers, Bengals, Chiefs, they can beat any of those teams. We've already seen them lose to the Chiefs once, but it wasn't a complete blowout. They lost by 10. And so, this is one of those games where it's like, this is probably one of your best chances to win. So if you guys want to continue being a dominant team, it starts here. So I don't know. Broncos, they just gave away Demaryius Thomas, who was their second best receiver. They still got Sanders. They still got Sutton. Philip Lindsay, I think, is having a great season. I don't think a lot of people expected him to come in undrafted. Kid who lived in Denver, I believe, growing up watching the Broncos.
He went to high school in Denver.
Yeah.
He went to the University of Colorado.
So he's kind of like a local favorite at this point.
Yeah, he's University of Colorado's leading rusher of all time.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so I think he'll have a decent game. I like him. He seems like a good guy. So
I love the way he plays. He plays so feisty. Like he's smaller, but he runs through guys, and he's always arguing with people. He's so chippy. Like he's always got a just giant chip on his shoulder. Like he's just so mad all the time. He got ejected from a game earlier this year for throwing punches. He was mostly kind of just swinging his arms around while like there was a scrum going on. So it was kind of BS. But he doesn't take it to the level of being a dirty guy.
Right.
He just plays with a lot of heart and fire, and I love that. They drafted Royce Freeman with a 3rd-round pick, which is huge in the NFL. That's where guys like Kerryon Johnson and Alvin Kamara get drafted, and they're Royce Freeman. So they're trying to get him out there and get him going. But Philip Lindsay, undrafted, just came in and almost basically took his spot.
Right. And Philip Lindsay too. Like you talked about his size, and that gets brought up almost every single time he's on the field. Same with him being from Denver, and it doesn't stop him at all. He easily runs through like short or when they're going on the goal line, and they're 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal, whatever. He's running through defensive linemen who are like 200 pounds heavier than him, like a foot taller than him, and he's just running through them like almost with ease. And it's like, it's insane what he can do, especially as an undrafted running back. So it's crazy. It's crazy. But I got the Broncos winning, or not the Broncos. I got the Chargers winning, and
yeah, this is it seems like an obvious pick, just because the trajectories of the team. The Broncos are going downward. The Chargers are going up.
Okay, so the next 3 games I think are going to be pretty good. This is why this is probably one of the best weeks in football so far. We'll start with the Eagles Saints. Carson Wentz and the Eagles versus Drew Brees and the Saints. It's gonna be insane. Last week Ertz had one of the best games of his career, I think. Absolutely tore it up. I know he got Robbie like 40 points or something as a tight end. Carson Wentz is having a decent year. He started off slow. I think he was still a little scared from that injury he took last year. It showed. Nick Foles started the season, which they booed him off the field, but then Carson Wentz comes in. 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's doing pretty well, 71% completion. And on top of having Ertz, on top of having Jeffrey and Anglor, they just picked up Golden Tate, who's only targeted 4 times last week, simply because Ertz was having one of the best games. Mismatch between him and the defense.
He just got to the team.
He just got to the team.
A lot of people were freaking out about that.
Mm-hmm.
But he just came to the team. It's not like this isn't a team like the Cowboys where Amari Cooper immediately was getting targets. Because there was no one else. The Eagles needed more depth. They weren't looking for a guy to come in and be the guy. They needed someone to be another guy. And to have Golden Tate as your 3rd option is incredible. And so I think that was a good trade for them, and I think they're looking forward with that. They weren't trying to make that an immediate boost to their team.
Yeah, it's crazy though. They gave up a 3rd-round pick next year for him, and they're sitting at 4-5. They were 3-5, right? No, they were 4-4 before last week, before they lost to the Cowboys. And that's basically saying this is the season. They're only 2 games behind the Redskins right now, 0.44. They got the Cowboys at 4-5 as well. The Giants are pretty much done, so we can count them out. But they're only 2 games behind. They could still make a push. They could still make a playoff push if they get to the top of the NFC East. And, picking up a weapon like Golden Tate, even for a year, is basically saying this is the year we're going to also, do what we did last year, get to the playoffs. Kind of not even.
Yeah.
And
he's on an expiring contract. This is a team that thinks it's making the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, exactly. And they have the talent to do it. We've seen them struggle. They kind of what's it called? Super Bowl hangover or something like that, where they struggled a little bit. But they're still a good team. On the other hand, the Saints are having one of the best. They're number 1 ranked right now, and it's for obvious reasons. They beat the Rams. They pretty much dominated almost every single team they've played this year, and they're just I think they could potentially go to the Super Bowl. 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I probably wouldn't even have included them, but just watching them play week in and week out at such a high level of excellence is insane. And they try to get Dez Bryant. Unfortunately, Dez Bryant tore his Achilles, but they made another move for somebody, I forgot, and they dominated the Rams, they dominated the Vikings, beat the Ravens by a point because someone missed a field goal, dominated the Redskins. They dominated everyone they've played, with the exception of Buccaneers, but that's also when the Fitzmagic was absolutely insane. He just threw for like 1 billion yards. So
I think you were trying to think of Brandon Marshall.
Yeah. So
he claims that he didn't do well in the Seahawks earlier this year because he wasn't fully healthy, and he says he is. So we'll see if we take him at his word. That's a great addition for the Saints because they could use the wide receiver depth. I think they're Ted Ginn's out for the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're still missing Cam Meredith at this point. So it's really just Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, and I don't know who else they have.
Right.
Nobody.
But Drew Brees, man, is absolutely having a career or season, a great season, career season. It's not his MVP yet level season, but 21 touchdowns, 1 interception is crazy. 0.3 interception. He's only been sacked 9 times. This offensive line is just, we watched it against the Rams, right? They stopped Sue. They stopped everybody on that Rams defense. They do it again. They're just insanely good. So I don't know, man. I think this is the team that could easily go to the Super Bowl. It's hard to say because, obviously playoffs are kind of weird sometimes, but the way they're playing is on a whole nother level. Oh, man. But, on the other side of the ball, returning Super Bowl champs just got even better with the addition of Golden Tate, who's now had 2 weeks, 3 weeks to practice on this team. So interesting.
We'll see what the coach claims that he's going to be a way bigger part of the game plan this week because of that, because he's had more time with them. We'll see. It's funny. They're the biggest underdogs for reigning Super Bowl champions since I think it was 2009. 2009. That's just because the Eagles just haven't come back looking as good, and the Saints are just dominating, like you said.
Right, and on top of that, it is in New Orleans. So I'm gonna pick I got the Saints winning this game. New Orleans, Drew Brees.
Yeah.
All day.
I'll never pick against the Saints at home. I just won't.
Not any. Well, you did earlier, didn't you? You picked the Rams. Yeah, you picked the Rams when they played Saints at home.
Saints at home?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you picked the Rams over the Saints.
Well, maybe that's the game that changed my mind.
So, we got Vikings Bears, NFC North matchup. Both teams are doing pretty well. This is kind of the game that's going to set the tone for the rest of the NFC North season. Bears are sitting at 6-3. Vikings are sitting 5-3. whoever wins this is going to take control of the NFC North. Well, not control, but be in the lead. And so it's going to come down to these two teams. The Lions are pretty much done. The Packers are pretty much done. Trubisky's having a fucking phenomenal year. Kirk Cousins is...
You say it like you're surprised.
Yeah, I am surprised. I said it in the offseason on Reddit. I was making some posts, and someone was like, how do you guys feel about Trubisky? And I was like, he's good on his feet. He can scramble. He's going to have receiving game for the first time. He didn't have good receivers last year. But he was able to scramble. He was able to do some good things. We still see some young quarterback mistakes in him. He overthrows a lot. He underthrows a lot. But he can scramble really well. And now that he has better coach, better offensive schemes, he's coming into his own. And I said, if he can sneak into the top half of quarterbacks this year, they're going to be good. They're going to be unstoppable. And that was before, they picked up Khalil Mack. So, with the addition of Khalil Mack, that, morale booster that, we might win this thing is huge. I don't know, man. The Vikings, on the other hand, Thalen's doing sweet. Diggs is doing great. Kirk Cousins is having a pretty good season for the first season with his new team. And, oh, man. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a really good game. And it's in...
I'm glad this game got put on Sunday night. I think there was a different game that was supposed to be this Sunday night game, and they flexed this in. They flexed a lot of games recently out and put in new games, better games. This is going to be a huge one. It's because we're Lions fans, it sucks to admit, but I think the Bears might actually be a Super Bowl contender, a legitimate Super Bowl contender. The Vikings are there too, of course. They almost did it last year, and their quarterback's even better this year. But I just think the Bears might be the class of the division, and yeah, that feels crazy to say. I mean, they had a good defense last year. People thought their offense could Rams it up and have that second year leap for Trubisky, getting a new offensive mind, and all that. And I thought, and I still thought, okay, the Bears are still the third best team in the division, but damn, they look dominant. The same way the Saints and the Chiefs and the Rams kind of look. They're almost in that tier where it's just like, it's surprising when a team competes with them.
Right. And here's another crazy thing. Going back to Trubisky, right? 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Why is that crazy? Because currently he has more touchdowns than Kirk Cousins. He has more touchdowns than Matthew Stafford. And he has more touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers. This guy who everyone was saying, he's still, in my opinion, the worst out of the four quarterbacks in the NFC North. That being said, he's having the best year out of all four quarterbacks in the NFC North.
Yeah.
And so, if he can keep this up, he's going to be doing all right. But on the other side of the ball, Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen has 947 yards on the season already, 7 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs, 4 touchdowns. Kyle Rudolph, a tight end that a lot of people, don't really think about when you think of tight ends. You do, but you don't. We do because NFC North, but, there's so many tight ends having good year that you kind of just forget about Kyle Rudolph, who's also having a decent year, 349 yards, 2 touchdowns.
If you're going to talk about actual football and not just fantasy football, where like stats are king, I mean, Kyle Rudolph's a huge part of the Vikings. Any team would kill to have Kyle Rudolph if they don't already have even if they did have a superstar tight end, because he does the little tight end things too. He makes great blocks.
Mm-hmm.
He runs good routes. He's amazing in the red zone. He's Rudolph, the red zone reindeer. I mean, this guy catches a touchdown, it seems like every other game. He's incredibly important to the Vikings, and I think Kirk Cousins loves having him at tight end because he loves throwing 2 tight ends.
Right. And I think this is going to be such a good game. Who do you got winning?
I have the Bears. It's going to be so close. I don't think it's a big deal that it's okay. I don't think the Vikings going to Soldier Field is bad. Playing at Soldier Field is hard no matter who you are, no matter how good the Bears are. But I think the Vikings have shown that on the road they don't give a fuck. Like they've played some teams crazy on the road, like the Packers earlier this year. They're a good team no matter where you put them. But the Bears, like I'm saying, I just think the Bears are ascending.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing though, if this is a close game, it doesn't really change anything, right? We'll still be like, okay, the Bears and the Vikings are going to be the number 2 teams. If one team blows the other team out this week, and just goes in and completely dominates, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for the NFC North. We'll be like, okay, the Bears came in, they dominated the Vikings. The Bears are no joke. The Vikings go in, they dominate the Bears. We're gonna be like, okay, the Vikings are no joke. They had that fluke loss. Right now they'd be sitting at 6-2-1 if it wasn't for that fluke loss against the Bills, which is still hilarious. But both of these teams are really good, so it'll be interesting, to say the least.
It'll be a good game.
I agree, and I'm also glad they flexed it. Sunday night, good game. All right, so I think this is probably the game of the year, maybe. So far, you could say the same thing about when the Saints and the Rams played each other, but the Chiefs and the Rams, Monday Night Football, it got moved back to LA. It was originally supposed to be in Mexico, but the field was so bad because I think they just had a concert or something.
The college game there on top of whatever, something else happened, but after the college game it was so bad that they couldn't use it.
Sucks for Mexico City. Sucks for the city as a whole.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be a better game now.
They're not refunding tickets for that. They're just saying come to LA, which is kind of fucked up. It's a different country.
Yeah, right. You can't just go to a different country. Like, what if you don't have a passport? What if you don't have a? I don't know if they can get enhanced license, but
those aren't things you can. Yeah, those aren't things you can do in like 3 days. It's crazy.
Right? Like, oh, we're just gonna go up to LA now. But this game I think is probably going to be a good game. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
go on a limb. Say it's a good game.
I'm gonna go on a limb here. It's obviously the Vikings Bears a really good game. The Saints Eagles is a really good game. Almost every single game this week is a good game, but this could be what we see in the Super Bowl. The Rams are killing it. The Chiefs are killing it. The Bears could easily go to the Super Bowl, and the Saints could easily go to the Super Bowl for the NFC. But the Rams are kind of one of those teams that are on a different level. They lost to it's hard to beat Drew Brees at home. Kansas City Chiefs' only losses to the Patriots. So both of these teams' loss are to a top 4 team. So this is such a good game. I don't even know where to start. You can start. You start.
Honestly, I think the Rams defense is better than the Chiefs defense, but I don't think it matters that much because the Chiefs offense might be better than the Rams offense. I'll definitely say that. They're definitely better than the Rams offense, and the Rams offense is very good. The Rams offense just lost Cooper Kupp for the rest of the year, which sucks because him and Jared Goff have a connection. I think that was fostered because they both were the young guys coming up at the same time. Cooper Kupp always made a big play for Jared Goff. He was like a security blanket for him. They're not a team that has a tight end, like a guy that the team can kind of go to in that way, like Cooper Kupp is. But at the same time, we saw Robert Woods step up while Cooper Kupp wasn't there for that role. Brandon Cooks is coming on, and obviously Gurley can catch just as well as any other receiving running backs in the league. But the Chiefs just roll out Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt and Travis Kelce. It's almost unstoppable. I'm picking the Rams, but not because I'm confident. I think it's going to be whoever touches the ball last wins, like the Patriots Chiefs game. It's just going to be whoever gets the ball last is going to win this game.
It's insane. we're looking at offenses, and you're absolutely right when you say, the Kansas City Chiefs probably have a better offense. They have more weapons. They have 35.3% or 35.3 average points per game. The Rams have 33.
Crap.
The Rams have
That's
33.5.
so many points. Those are so many points for both teams.
The only team better right now is New Orleans Saints, who's averaging like 36.7 and like 3.5 per time. The Saints are averaging like 3.5 per drive, and
it's crazy.
Oh my god, right? And so like you look at these teams, the Rams have 4,480 yards total this season. The Chiefs have 4,231. They're close in offense. They're really close in offense. Defense, the Giants. Why the fuck did I say the Giants? The Rams are 23rd in points or yards allowed, which is insane. And the Chiefs are 31st. So both defenses are kind of struggling, which you wouldn't think the Rams defense would be struggling because they have such powerhouse players on that defense, but.
True. They probably filter their. I mean, then again, their secondary had some injuries, and they probably don't need to be a team that they're on the field a lot because the offense ends up scoring. So being right around 20th, I mean, that's almost like can you keep a team under, 27 points? Well, then we win, and that's as good as their defense needs to be. But you're right; they should be way more dominant. You'd think.
But on the other side of the argument, maybe teams, this is a team that teams play for, if that makes sense. Like you go into the Rams, you have to give it your best game or you lose. Same with the Chiefs, man. You have to go.
It's the opposite of the Buffalo Bills, where the Vikings go into the Buffalo Bills game probably thinking they're going to coast through it and then get blown out because of it. And the Vikings weren't bad. The Vikings aren't bad. We've seen them play well before and after that. I think it was a trap game. And it's like whatever the opposite of a trap game is, it's the game where it's your Super Bowl. Like you get up for it. Yeah, I think you're right.
You have to play your best or you lose. And, people are playing their best and still losing. Same with the Chiefs, though. Like, how do you beat the Chiefs?
The Chiefs have not had an easy schedule. Like neither of these teams, they're not blowing out like cupcake teams. Like they both play in divisions with legitimate teams. Like the Rams have to play the Seahawks. I mean, they do get the Cardinals, and the Raiders, or not the Raiders. The Chiefs get the Raiders, but they've had to play the Chargers. They've had to play all these good AFC teams. I'm in awe of both of these teams. The years they're having.
Right? They lost to the Patriots is their only loss, but they put up 40 points against the Patriots. The Patriots only won because they put up 43. Like you have to put up 43 points to beat this team. And the Rams, the Saints are the only team that beat them, and the Saints had to put up 45. Like it's the same thing. You score 45 points to beat this team, and like. I don't know.
And that's not common. Teams aren't going to just be able to do that. That's why I think this is a Super Bowl preview. I mean, either one of these teams could end up, like you said, the Saints are still looming. The Patriots are still looming. The Steelers, I mean, they could come on even stronger. Who knows? Their defense looked amazing against the Panthers. And so they might end up, holding off the Chiefs enough for the Steelers to put up that 45 points. But it's just going to be hard. They'll never be underdogs. Neither of these teams will ever be underdogs except when playing each other.
Exactly. They both have good quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is kind of like he has 31 touchdowns on the season. Jared Goff has 22.
Patrick Mahomes is that guy.
Right.
He is that guy. He is there's a system there, but he's elevating it above the system. He has more touchdowns than Alex Smith's almost MVP season last year already. And like Jared Goff gets a lot of system quarterback talk, and he might be that, but being a guy who can execute a great system you're still a very quality quarterback.
Yeah.
His stats look like an MVP candidate.
Right. And who cares if you have a system quarterback if the system works? You're winning every single time.
Right. Like who cares? Like there's plenty of systems where the quarterback can't do it, He's playing at a high level. It's just that Patrick Mahomes is a star on that level of like I think he's Aaron Rodgers, like
Yeah, he's good.
level of like he's gonna end up making guys good. I think eye test, he looks that good.
And not only that, he's so dangerous outside the pocket. What's he going to do? Is he going to run? He has 158 rushing yards on the season. Is he going to throw it? He has 3,000 throwing yards on the season. Like, it's insane. 31 touchdowns is no joke. Kareem Hunt, their leading running back right now, obviously, 7 touchdowns. But then you go to the Rams, Todd Gurley, 13 touchdowns on the season. Like, these guys are fucking insane. Like, Todd Gurley is in argument for an MVP right now as a running back in a quarterback-dominated league. And, they both have good – Rams have a good defense. Chiefs have an okay defense. They don't really need to be good. But, they got Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Watkins, Hunt, Ware. Like, you just go down the list, and they're naming so many good players on both teams. Cooks, Woods, Kupp, like he said, is injured. Todd Gurley has 402 receiving yards, 988 rushing yards. I would not be surprised if we see a 100-point game this week. It's probably going to be more like 80-ish, but, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 100-point game. And
the over-under is set at 63.5. It's going to be higher than that.
Dude, it's crazy. So, I can't wait to watch this game and talk about it. I might do...
Too, I'm so excited.
I might do an episode Tuesday just because I think this is going to be such a good game. Same with the Vikings. We could do an episode Monday and talk about the Vikings-Bears game, which probably will be what happens. If you're in for it, I'm in for it. So
yeah, I'm down.
So yeah, because this is going to be such a good week of football. I'm excited. We're seeing these potential playoff matchups, and so.
We're getting a sneak preview of them because there's still 7 weeks left,
right?
6 weeks after this. So, I mean, a lot of things could change, but the teams we're talking about are pretty solidified in their spot as top teams. So I can't wait to see them play each other.
Right. And, this game gets flexed back to Rams, which kind of gives them a benefit, like a little bit of a boost. Who do you pick? You picking the Rams? I'm also picking the Rams. I don't.
Yeah, and I'm only going with them because they're at home. I don't even think that means that much. It's just honestly, it's tough to pick.
Exactly. I'm only picking the Rams because their defense is a little bit better, where I think whoever makes like one stop defensively is going to have an upper hand.
Or whichever defense ends up scoring.
Yeah, if you get a pick 6, that's huge in this game. Just because offenses are just going to be going down the field over and over and over again. It's going to be great. So I'm excited. Can't wait to watch this game. Monday night. I'm not really a big fan of Monday night coverage, but whatever.
Yeah, right. It's not fun. I don't listen to the game very much when I'm watching Monday nights. I think Sunday night gets crapped on a little bit too much. I kind of like the dynamic, the way they talk about him. People make fun of Chris Collinsworth, the Sunday Night Football guy, the color guy, because he has like a lot of phrases he says and that he repeats, and he's kind of he picks favorites. Like right now, Patrick Mahomes is his favorite when it was Aaron Rodgers before, and he just gushes over everything he does. But I'm at home doing the same thing, so I don't mind it.
Right? Yeah. Thursday night football's okay. Amazon kind of does their thing, but the weird thing about Monday Night Football is that weird like halftime music video thing they've been showing. I don't know if you've seen that.
It's terrible. It's called they had the commercial free version of it for like a couple of weeks. I don't know if they still do it because I didn't watch the halftime. I just gave up on even paying attention to that. But they had the commercial free version. But the commercial free version was just in between segments of them. The people talking, the crappy shortened music video. They ran a commercial. They just picked one sponsor instead of showing multiple commercials.
Well,
that's not commercial free.
The other thing is, like, if you're going to make anything commercial free, don't make it halftime when everyone's going to the bathroom outside to walk their dog or whatever. Make it like between
I don't understand.
Quarters. Talk about the quarter. Like, make your halftime show. Talk about the first half. Like, I want to see. Like, I don't want to see some.
Never do it.
I don't want to see some. Like, no offense to the music, but I don't want to see some band I've never heard of or never going to listen again. Music video.
Or washed up people. I like Lil Wayne, but I mean, he's way past his prime as being like a very mainstream musician. Good Charlotte was one of the artists that did one of these halftime performances, which is just like you said, a pre-recorded music video. They keep saying they're going to perform at halftime.
And it's just like a weird music video, like it's MTV in 2000. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
so,
exactly. I don't get it. Yeah.
But anyway,
football. Jesus.
I think that's it for the week. A lot of good games. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys watching on YouTube, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button or whatever is on YouTube. If you guys watching on Twitch, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on everything. And we will see you guys hopefully Monday. Should be pretty good. And, yeah. Any last words you want to say, Ryan?
I think we covered it all. I think we covered it all. I can't wait.
I think we covered it all as well. So, be a good week. I will catch you guys later. And thank you guys for stopping by. Peace out.